using to build community. Over the years, organizations were able to be self-sufficient to support their target audience. The evolution of the HIV world allows segmented groups to form and garner strength to address those living with the virus. As the numbers increased, the impact was felt greater amongst Black people, and concurrently, the funding to support those impacted began to decline in the 21st century. It is believed, it is believed that the continued success of an organization whose focus is to support those living with HIV is predicated on their ability to form alliances. In cities where the impact is greatest, organizations are now faced with providing services that address specifically, excuse me, providing services specifically address the community that they serve. ASOs, CBOs such as ourselves are shifting their mission to align with the greater impact. Yet there is a question: how do you shift to align with the community needs if you're not clear who your community is? Today we'll take you on a journey and ask, whose lens are you using to build your community alliance? So to start off with, I am the manager now of the Silver Lining Project. The Silver Lining Project is a program geared toward men over 50 living with the virus. We do a number of things, i.e. support groups. We host training, which we call a skills curriculum, but it's more about building an alliance for those over the age of 50, Black men. And so, you can't see yourself over here, but
I can see my beard.
Okay. So these are the three individuals, the co-founders of the Silver Lining Project, from left to right: Nathan Townsend, Claude Bowen, and Malcolm Reed. And we feel it's important that when you start to build community bridges, when you start organizing your alliances, you let people know from where it started, because you never forget where you came from. But our organization is very unique because while our program is for men that are over 50, we do have another program, and I'm gonna let this individual introduce himself and discuss his program.
So my name is Darriyhan. I am the manager of our peer support department at RSS. And pretty much what it is, it's just a program and a department where we just engage with our community and we welcome anyone who comes to the door. So we have several programs that we walk you through, which may include one-on-ones, but we also host peer support groups, and we work closely with the Silver Lining, with really incorporating, making sure that our members in our community just feel seen, heard, and valued. So that is a little bit about the self-love department.
We feel it's important for those who may not know and for those who are on the Zoom that when you're talking about building community, I'm hoping that you include members of all ages.
Yes.
As you see, I'm representing one group or an age bracket of individuals, but there are other ages that need to be included, especially when you talk about building bridges. Your community is not just monolithic, they're not all old people. So, I heard that. So, when you begin to examine how you will meet the needs of your community, a conversation should begin with who is the community. What you view your community as may not be the way they wish to be viewed. Conversely, you may not appear to the community the way you think. So on the next slide, we're going to take you through we call this interactive process, where we're going to ask you questions because it's based on how you view yourself through a pair of lens.
So when you're wearing lenses, you want to make sure how you're seeing yourself. Are you seeing yourself through these lenses? These lenses?
No shades.
These lenses? Or are you seeing yourself through somebody else's lens?
So if you can go to slido.com, excuse me, if you can take out your cell phones, your mobile devices. This is going to be interactive. You want to participation. Go to slido.com. And the code is 1283105.
You want to get QR codes right here at the top as well.
You need to scan that.
What's the code again?
1283105.
For the left side of your lens describes how do you view yourself. For the left side of your lens describe how do you view yourself. Creative. Black. 1283105. Fearless, bold, resilient, smart. Fearless. Fierce. You bad little bitch. I know who said that. I didn't say anyway, tell me bad little bitch.
That's how we know. I like someone wrote Black Strong Survivor.
Black and proud, big and beautiful, reflective, independent, sophisticated, eager to learn. Black gay man, son, brother, leader, smart, funny, fun-loving, supportive, resourceful, purposeful, loving, complex. Overcomer, more ways than one. Supporter, overlooked, soft, powerful, funny, and delightful, valuable, lover, liberator, aging, chameleon, and deep shit of I underachieving. Underachieving. Okay. So keep it up, keep your slider up. We're going to go to the right side. For the right side of your list, describe how you think people view you. Shy, loving, successor, troublemaker, asshole, resilient, unworthy, intimidating, reserved, caring, black, reserved, powerful, aggressive, agitator, leader, mysterious. Y'all better be typing it in. Stuck up. Dedicated, funny, normal, slacker, the cook, powerful, president, aloof, go-getter, introvert. Overly confident, not black enough. a band little, that supposed to be bitch, biatch.
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 I mean, I couldn't, but I know what the
Baby, extrovert, family oriented. A survivor. Loyal, understanding, a person willing to compromise. Insecure to loud. Okay.
So just a couple of things. Right now, when you're talking to your community, when you're looking at who your community is, these are some of the examples of where your community may feel that they represent or look like. So on the left side, you may have individuals who say they identify based on their race, based on their ethnicity, based on their gender, and based on their sexual orientation. But then on the right side, your community may view or think people view them based on their economic class, based on their affiliation, based on their educational level, and based on their geography. So when you're talking to community, you should keep this in mind that where you may view things one way, your community may view that same question in a different way.
So here's a question I thought was really important for us to bring into the room. How did this exercise make you feel? And this is a part where we can take responses, and please, we're gonna have a microphone travel so that people on Zoom can also hear the response. How did this exercise make you feel? What was it like to see those listed the way people saw themselves or the way other people saw them? What was it like in the room to hear that or read that?
It made me feel curious because of the fact that they put a different perspective. They made me think about how to approach someone when I talk to someone. As a provider, I have to adjust all the time, and now I really have to adjust to how I talk to my community outside of work. And when I talk to someone, either I have different groups. So every time I have to adjust to someone I talk to, either I'm code switching with a white person or a Latino or a Chinese person, or I'm code switching to talk to my family who is West Indian, I'm taken away from someone who is part of the barroom scene and the LGBT scene because I have to be more straight. So it's a way to where I have to take on one glasses, put another glasses, put contacts in, put on blinders, put on different ways to where like I'm always switching drawers, glasses, outfits all the time. So it makes me where do I always gotta have a wardrobe where I go out to talk to somebody or something? Because they not switching with me. Why do I not switch with them?
Here's a question for you. Do you think that they have any awareness that you're switching between lenses or language or wardrobe? And I don't necessarily want you to answer that question. I kind of want to leave that for the room to think about. Because I think, at least for me, I grew up as a professional code switcher. I was just talking about that in the other room. And I think I thought that I was the only one who was aware. But now that I'm in a place where I'm no longer code switching, which is why I can speak my truth without fear of retribution, the awareness is universal. And so now I go back and think all those times I thought I was being so slick and clever, they knew then, just like they know now. And I think if we designed our programs with that awareness, that we might need to be clear about who we are and what we're trying to do and be unapologetic about that so that we don't look like a different organization based on which audience we're in front of at a given moment. And we'll get this question after we hear from you.
So Jacob, one thing you just said was, why should I have to code switch when they're not code switching for me? I'll push that back to you and say, how do you know that? How do you know that the person sitting in front of you has not code switched to talk to you? Right? Yeah, again, you don't have to answer that. I just wanted to, when you said that, it struck me because we don't know.
Something else?
I was going to say, first of all, just thank y'all for this. Like, I really, I'm appreciating the lens, like the left and the right. It's so visual, so helpful. What's painful about code switching is it was never said to me by the people who love me, code switch, do this thing. But I still got the cues in terms of this is how you survive. You know what I mean? Because like, they can't take us. So for our survival in these spaces, dark-skinned, fat Black girl from the South, you have to do this in order to survive. And so I learned all of these things, and I'm constantly unlearning them. And I don't think I've thought as much about the code switching aspect as something that I'm also unlearning. You know what I mean? Like, it was never said, but somehow we all got the memo to code switch. No one ever said, and you say this over here, but we all fucking do it. It's deep.
I actually have recollection though, and I don't know why, but maybe because I was an artist. I was always on stages, even as a little kid. I was always in front of people and I would talk. And I would get notes, unsolicited notes, mostly from family at first, then at friends, and as people feel comfortable with me, I always got notes.
Wow.
Do you really think you should have said? Did you really mean to? And I have noticed in our communities, we police each other around language and dress and vernacular, and do you, how much of that do you think you want to be? And are you really willing? Are you really getting ready to go out like that? Do you think I'm gonna let you come with me to this event looking like that? We police each other. We police each other all the time. And I think until recently, I was comfortable with letting people get away with policing me. I'm not comfortable with it now, but that's very, very recent. So thanks for that.
To answer Lisa's question, her statement, my mom always wanted to tell me, I didn't know she was code switching, but she used to work in the state house, the government house, as a administrative assistant. And so when she would come to me, it's like, you have to learn how to talk the white man language. You have to learn how to be proper. You have to learn how to do this and this. Read the dictionary, do your homework, do all that. And I was like, why do I have to, when you come home, you be hood as ghetto as that can be, but when you on that Ezra saying, thank you for calling Right Stadium, that's like, you so proper. You code switch all the time. And then when I got older, and she getting older, as a child from a baby boomer, I'm like, hold on now, wait a minute. Why are you telling me to do this, but you can do it all the time now? You taught me how to do this, and now you judging me.
My dad used to say, do as I say, not as I do. Have y'all ever heard that?
Yes.
That was really, really big, and he meant that. And actually to Mandisa's point, at least for me, I grew up in Alabama, and it was funny. I remember I went to graduate school in DC, and I remember the first time hanging out, and I never hang out with the DC people you're supposed to hang out with. I hang out with people who are from DC. I want to know, I want to hear go-go music. I want to give me some chicken wings with some mumble sauce. You know what I mean? For me, if I'm in a community, if I ever come visit anybody in the town, I want to do what y'all do. I want to do a thing, right? So I was walking down sidewalk, right? Just FYI, when I come to New Orleans. I was walking down the sidewalk, and some white people were coming the opposite way. I was with my friends, and they were coming that way. So it was a group of Black people and this crowd of white people. And so I was on the street side of the sidewalk, and when we got to where we were almost in close proximity with white people, I got off the sidewalk into the street and kept going, and then looked over and realized that they kept walking straight and didn't go off. And all of a sudden,
I saw I was dealing with my lens. I was like, what just happened? Why did I just get off the sidewalk, right? But to Melissa's point, my people have been conditioned that if you don't want to be in a problem situation that's going to involve the police, there are certain social cues you're going to have to incorporate in your manner of being. Otherwise, you could end up not only in trouble or and that's why I think this conversation about race, we can't act like this was this long ago, y'all. This is, in some instances, it's still going on. A couple of questions. I'm sorry. I'm going to go quit apologizing. So I'm question. It was interesting to see how positive we see ourselves and how negative we think others see us. That was an observation. We asked the question, how did you feel? So let's sit in that for a second. Second response, it got me thinking, actually, what does my dash mean to not only me, but to others? What does my dash? Yeah.
So that was my question.
Okay, good.
So the dash meeting team will definitely vary. Because we do know when we speak about the dash this day, we're always trying to be something that we're not, right? Until we actually step into our Black excellence and our Black joy, it goes back to say, well, how am I showing up into positive spaces? Well, back to what Melissa said, code switching, we was always for, and we speak on the right, focusing. I was always taught to do what you need to do to fit into spaces. So of course, by me working for this school board superintendent, back when I was 14, 15, I had dreads then, I cut it off to fit inside of that space, right? And growing up and trying to be all this managerial, like and all of that stuff, I tried to fit in. So of course I may talk about that. Of course I may put on the head like a good old blazer, you know, dress to fit in. But by the time I get home, I'm hood as it is, you know what I mean? Like, and I still pop my shit, do what I need to do. But then again, on the flip side, it's just like, how am I really being that I don't need to put on for nobody? And there was a shift, and there still is a shift that's happening. And that comes about change. Like, I ain't got to fit into nobody's face in order for myself to be respected, because I need to respect myself first in order for everybody else to see.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, everyone. Oh.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. I wasn't sure if we had the space to talk about it, but I think that's what we're here for. Malcolm?
So I worked for AT&T for 20 years. And every day I went to work as Malcolm Reed, Associate Director of Technology. Then I retired from AT&T. And I was volunteering for Thrive, and then I started working for Thrive. And that was a shift for me. I could come to work as me, right? Because for 19 years, I didn't go to work as me. For 10 years, while working at AT&T, I did not acknowledge my husband, right? So I'll tell you all this story. So my husband makes peach cobbler, right? He makes the bomb peach cobbler. Every Thanksgiving, I would bring the peach cobbler, right? And they would say, "Now, you make peach cobbler?" No. Well, you didn't make the peach cobbler? No. I said, "I don't cook." You don't cook? No, I don't cook. Well, who cooks? And I would never answer the question. Never answer the question. One day, Stuart brought the peach cobbler up because I left it at home. I had some to bring. And all the girls, all the black girls, was downstairs.
Of course.
And when he handed me the peach cobbler, they were like, "That's who makes the peach cobbler?" I said, "Uh-huh." And they all did look like to me like the Edith going, "Oh." But the point is that for 10 years of those 20, I was not myself at all. And then for the remaining 10 years, I was a part of myself, but I was still never myself until I started working in spaces with my people.
Thank you for sharing. That's huge. I really appreciate your perspective. Other comments?
I'm sorry. I've had a million and one jobs, right? I'm 26. I've been working since I was 17, literally since before I graduated high school. And every job I've had, I always just went to it to get a paycheck. Like, that's what we do with jobs. My first like big boy job was I was a teacher. I went to Boston. I taught 10th grade math, and it was a great experience. I was the only black person on my team, like literally the only black person. Everybody else was white or Asian descent, and they were mostly lesbians. Boston. Like, yes.
I didn't know.
And so anytime something happened, and we had conversations, I was always the outlier because most of the people never knew my experience. I was the only one from the South. I was younger, mind you. And I used to always just feel like it was a problem because they didn't see me. They didn't understand where I was coming from. Like, it don't matter what the situation was. It was like, oh, that's your viewpoint? Okay. So it got to the point to where I just didn't interact with them. I didn't interact at all. And so I guess that's part of the reason why I only taught for 1 year. But I say that to say now, I feel like I have another big boy job working with Thrive. And it's the first job I feel like I show up as myself 100%. Like I never feel like I'm hindering myself to show up to work. And I love that. It's a new space. It's a new headspace. And it actually, I feel like it frees you and lets you get more done when you feel like you're actually showing up to work and not trying to hide yourself. When you actually show up to work to do the job you was hired for and not have to think about, oh, I can't do this because they might think that's too gay, girl. Too outspoken. And so, yeah, I understand the code switching. Like I said, I had a million more jobs. So it was the first time I feel like I could be 100%
Other experiences? Is there anybody that gets to show up for their full self that don't work at Thrive? I'm just asking you.
My experience started with Thrive. My experience started quite a while ago. My people started back in 2015. I'm from Tampa, so working with the city, I worked with like 5 people. We're all black, black and Latino, and I don't know. It's just something about myself. I grew up really, really shy, so me actually coming out of my shell and just being my full self was not a thing that I thought I would be able to do. But working with them and then everything after that, I've always been my full self. But I would say working with Positive You, which is who I work for now, I guess owning my diagnosis and everything like that, that was the other part of me that I really hadn't really stepped into. So I'm definitely looking at that.
Other experiences people want to share?
It's a real place. Real two people want to do it. I used to work in respiratory therapy. I worked at the post office for a lot of years. I retired from the post office. I've been working with these. I've been working out for 20 years. And I've been a Muslim since I was 19 and I'm 70 on my birthday. I've never been able to come to any job as my real self until I got into this community. I wish I could say that, but when I came into this community, I thought I would have to be a certain way or act a certain way to do something, but this community just kind of reached out to me, right, in a way that made me feel comfortable and welcome. And I learned how to live my truth through the LGBT community that supported me because my Muslim community did not support me being open as a person living with HIV and being Muslim. Not supportive. In fact, they even, some of them questioned whether or not I should be able to even come into the mosque when they found my status. So for years I stayed away. But I learned, I got my courage to go back, right?
And so now I go and I said, this is not a place we talk about activism. That's an quote, outside issue. So I didn't talk about activism. But they see me on television, right? And so finally, somebody finally got the nerve to say to me, I saw you on television. You were in your husband. I'm like, okay, so here it goes. Right? Then she said, I knew there was something special about you the day you walked in. But it took 15 years for somebody to say that. So what I do want to say is that when I feel like change codes and stuff is when I'm traveling, I do not guard when I travel. I don't feel safe, because I'm a Muslim, not because I'm Muslim, than because I'm black. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because I'm being watched. But it's on my it's on my passport. It's not like they don't let it, So, and I love hair. For those who know me, I love hair. I got every color hair you can think of, and I love hair, right? So a lot of times I go in drag to travel safely so that I feel safe, because I don't want to be that person standing out. Everybody's looking at, they might have the bomb or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I have lots of things that I go through, but I go through to give you what you are. Because man, I know I'm sick. I'm not
my name is Marquette Hughes. Most people know me as Marquette. For me, a long while back, I used to work for Chicago Public Schools. I worked for the school system for like 13 years. And there came a point while I was working at that school is when I found out I was HIV positive. And in that role, I continued to work, but there came a point in time where I started to see my body change, my facial features, and all of that. I said, oh, I can't do this in front of the classroom. What they gonna think? What's going on with Mr. Hughes? So I went to the principal and I talked to the principal, and I said, well, I think it's time for me to leave because I'm not doing well. He said, what do you mean? I said, not mind what I mean, what it's for. But I need to take a leave of absence or resign. And he said, well, Mark, tell me where you want to go with it. I'm with you. He said, well, let's do it like this. Let's do the leave of absence first. And see if you feel better, you want to come back. Because he said, the kids love you. I said, okay, because at that time I was working with behavior disorders. I was the one that all the gangbangers was in, that I worked with. And so when I couldn't do it anymore, I went to them and I said, today is the day I gotta go. I couldn't stay there no longer. And I could see my body actually meat and all that type of stuff. And he told me, he said, you can't go back to your classroom. I said, why not? I can't even tell him about it. He said, no, because if you tell him about it, he's gonna fuck up this whole school. He said, we're gonna have some issues. He said, no, whatever you need, we'll pack it up and make sure you eat it. In that manner, and it is really hard to show up as your authentic self. And when other people are involved, especially children, I can show up as a gay black man because they think all gay black men like to have children. And like, okay, I can't have that conversation with nobody. So when I started doing this still work, because I said, okay, I got to find a way to save me. So when I started doing the work in HIV, I was like, okay, this is it. So I'm helping others at the same time helping me to move forward. And so from that, that's why all my dignity, my compassion, my everything was poured into. And why, me and you have talked about this many times, how life changes and it changes you around. From that area, from HIV, testing and managing and being a leader, being over to the other side of HIV criminalization. So, all of these pieces came together for me. And so now I'm at a place now where I'm totally comfortable. I'm not going back to work for nobody on the 9 to 5 number. Them days are over for me because I find out it's better for me to work as a consultant and work the way that I want to work and still get the job done that I want to get done, and everybody else still with their needs. So everything needs.
Before we go to the, I'll tell a story. When we first got the lands, when we first learned the lands, that it was taught to us, picture assistant. We're at a cabin and it's cold. Somebody, I won't name any names.
I'm starting to look at that.
Decides
Hold
that
on.
the cabin, well, this one part of the cabin wasn't cold enough. I'm there, I stay cold all the time. So anyway, I'm gonna skip all that. We get to the part which teaching us is 4 of us sitting in chairs, and we all got blankets on us. That's just covered. So the first time we done the lands, we had to do it, it was like, oh, I never thought about that. So when you guys said it was triggering because it made me think, I never thought about that. You know, I never thought, somebody might be looking and say, that's a sissy right there. And then you think about, you know, when they're talking to me, they're laughing in my face, but they're thinking, this little sissy getting up on her right now. So that was how it triggered me to. And every time we do the skills and we do the lands, it's amazing how people react to what they think they see versus what they see.
Thank you so much for sharing that context. I think it's really, really important that everyone understands that this exercise is a part of the curriculum that we use in our training to help our participants work through HIV and aging, work through trauma, work through loss, work through stigma and advocacy. So the context with which these tools are developed is really, really important, because if someone is sitting in the audience and say, oh, all I have to do is do the lens exercise and then I can move forward beyond the front, and it's not that simple. It's not that simple. This particular exercise helps bring awareness, but then you have to figure out, okay, then what are the steps that we're going to take to actually implement this strategy? Question for you. When I say Giovanni's room, don't answer, I'm gonna set this up, so don't, if you get the clue, if you get where I'm going, don't say anything. If I say Giovanni's room, if I say another country, if I say go tell it on the mountain, if I say tell me how long the train's been gone, if I say in Bill Street, Qatar, if I say just above my head, if I say notes on the native sun, raise your hand if you know who I'm talking about. Out of all the people in the room,
Raise your hands high.
only 4, 5. Y'all have no, the rest of y'all have no idea. Put your hand down. The rest of y'all have no idea.
Yeah, no, but you, I heard you.
Go tell it on the mountain. Giovanni's room. Another country. I mean, I even said that. Tell me how long the train's been gone. If Bill Street could talk, just above my head, and notes on the native sun.
Oh,
Who am I talking about?
Ball.
James Baldwin. James Baldwin is a huge force in my life. And if you don't know James, James was talking about lenses. James was talking about abolition. James was talking about capitalism 100 years ago. And we have not done our job as community advocates. It's really easy, and I don't mean to get on soapbox. It's really easy to come into a community as an HIV advocate. But sometimes I think some of us undermine our own programs because we have not first become a community advocate. I don't know if that went over your head, but I'm seriously concerned about the future of our movement because we're skipping over our people to try to get flavor with a pharmaceutical company. Did you what I said? Be careful, be careful, be careful, be careful. And one of the things that keeps me grounded in this conversation is the work, the meditation, the fearlessness of Mr. James Baldwin. And he said, to be a Negro in this country And to be relatively conscious is to be in a state of rage almost all of the time. Can we get some love for that? For that articulation? Question for you. How old were you when you first experienced racism? And these are short answers now. This isn't the door for narratives, right? This is a very specific question. How old were you when you first experienced racism? I would love for us to kind of collect some responses. If we could get someone to maybe record some of these, I would love for this to be some data that we can collect and take back. Do we have a record? Do we have somebody keeping record? Okay, great. Oh, we got a microphone?
I was less than a day old. My first experience. When my mom had me, the first thing the nurse, well, I guess it was the nurse. She was like, the birth certificate thing. My dad had left to go to work, and so lady was like, oh, so he doesn't have a father to sign the birth certificate. And my mom was just like, yeah, he'll be back around 4 o'clock. He was here when I had the baby. I don't know whether it was different. But yeah, that's the first time it was a white lady. And yeah, that was the first time I got experienced racism. I think I had a father to sign my birth certificate.
How old were you when you first experienced racism?
I guess my first, when I can first remember, when you're a kid, you can only go back to. I remember growing up in New York and being in the projects when white folks lived in the projects. So I guess I was 4 or 5, somewhere around there.
I'm gonna take it back to being born in Washington, D.C. And being born in Freeman's Hospital, because I couldn't be born in Washington. I still think I was black. No, I wasn't black. I was Negro. Was I? No, my parents was. I was Negro. And right, so my mother, the family tells the stories. We were on, and you know, Freeman's Hospital, like, yeah, they tore down black guys.
I'm walking on this other side. Even that comment is deep where we said I was black, no, I was Negro, no, I was colored. We went through iterations of being identified over the years. And we're still going through that still.
For me, and to really experience it, I was 18. I went to the South to a funeral. My aunt's husband passed away, and I drove my mother there, and I lost directions to where I was going. And I pulled in this filling section to get information on directions. So I'm standing in line. It's a white woman in front of me. I'm standing in line, and she's checking out. And 2 white men came in behind me. And she told them, y'all can step around here. Anyway. And I was like, what? And I started going off. By this time, my mother jumps up and she comes in the filling station. And she says, sir, he don't understand where he is at. He don't understand what's going on. And then I got mad with my mother. I'm like, well, what's going on? Why you won't let me control the situation? They're disrespecting me. So by this time, I get to the car because I'm upset now, I'm crying. That's how bad my feelings was hurt. And my mother explained, she said, baby, by me bringing you back to this car, I got you with me. I could save your life, don't you with me? But if they had took you away, I don't know what they would have done to you. So that was my first time experiencing it, and that's when it really sunk into me. This shit is real.
So my first experience that I can remember is I was 5, and I had a friend. She was a white female, and she invited me to her birthday party, and then I remember getting there, and I just remember feeling like out of place. And we had a conversation later, and she said that her mom had said that, you know, she could not talk to me or hang out, because at the party, she called me her boyfriend. And so it ultimately ended up where her mom actually talked to the school, and I didn't know why I was being punished, but I got switched to a different class, a different teacher.
Wow. We got one more. Two more.
My first experience with racism was when I was, well, 4 years old. I had a friend that I was playing with in my community that was white, and we were over the house, and I accidentally broke one of their toys, and their parents, father specifically, decided that he wanted to call me a nigger. I didn't understand too much, but luckily, I had my parents there to kind of help me through that. And then later on, as I grew up, I found out that I experienced racism earlier than that. Shortly after I was born, unfortunately. My mother's Puerto Rican, and my grandfather does not appreciate darker skin. And unfortunately, racism is real, and Puerto Rican colorism and everything. So he didn't want too much to do with me. I had an older brother who was fair skinned that he welcomed with open arms, but he didn't too much care for it.
Yes, thank you. I don't remember how old I was. I know I was very young. I was with my dad and my younger siblings. We were just out playing. And this white woman asked if we could, well, not asked, she said, y'all need to move over to the other side of the lawn, right? And I, thinking about that and just hearing so many of the collective stories being shared, I just found myself now thinking about how it's more and it's so nuanced, right? Where you can be going to sit down or you're sitting down somewhere and a white person will come in and they'll sit in another seat. And you can ask yourself, wait, did I just experience? Was this? Or you could be walking down the street and someone will cross the street, right? So I think now it's not as blatant as you being called a nigger, right? It's not these things that are so in your face and so pervasive. It's now these smaller, minute, nuanced things where it actually makes you start to second guess, start to wonder, you know what it is. You know exactly what it is when you find yourself thinking and doing out this extra work. Did I just experience this thing? Right? Because now we can just take out our cameras and like, Karen, I got you. Right? And so now it's more and it looks so different. And how do you navigate that? Right? The nuances of that. I just find myself thinking about it.
So I want to thank everyone for sharing. So we begin to transition past this. One of the things I want to share is that racism and what you experience as racism isn't because of someone white saying something to someone black. And I say that because I also grew up in New York City, and it was one of those products where we were bused to white schools. And so I had black friends and I had white friends. And I experienced racism when I went home around my black friends and said, well, you think you're white. So I say that to say, be careful when you talk about racism, because sometimes we do it to ourselves. Okay, so be very careful with that. So next, we're going to share some information about how we at Thrive address the whole person through work that we do. Okay.
So, in Thrive, I have the pleasure of managing our self-love and physical program. And when I first came on, came on as a peer support specialist, and I was tasked with coming up with a program for our peers and community members. And as I was coming up with a program, I kind of thought about, okay, cool, I work under the self-love and self-efficacy program. But how many of our community members really know what self-love is? You know, it was something that we were taught kind of growing up, and we probably heard self-love is the best love. But how many of us really know what self-love means and how to really address it for when it comes time to beat ourselves up, to really go back in and tap into that self-love? So I came up with a program which talked about 10 steps to self-love. And going through the program, it was amazing. At the end of the 10 steps, got an evaluation from our evaluator. Great. But then I thought about it and I was like, when it comes to community building and building power in the community, our members want to come and be one of the participants. They want to see themselves in this position, stand up here and also not just receiving, but giving information from their perspective, because I and other staff members were giving it from what we consider our lens when self-love may identify or mean something different to you. So we go to 10 steps. It was really amazing. So I sat down with my manager at the time, and I said, I have an idea for an ambassador. And I wanted to bring on some members who graduated from the first cohort to really tap into and make this experience better for the next cohort. Maybe learn some things, share what they learned, but also create a space to make it better for the next cohort. And okay, I'm not sure if you see these pictures, but these pictures are from our first graduation. When we graduated, we took them to make events and celebrated with them. And then in the second cohort, we had 2 ambassadors, and I have the pleasure that those ambassadors are both in this role. And if they want to share just a little bit about their experience going through the 10th step and how it was becoming an ambassador versus a
Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Ortiz, and I was a graduate of the first cohort of the self-love program, Drive.
Cameron, take hands. He's shy.
I'm sorry.
He's shy.
That is actually one of the reasons I came to Thrive in the first place, was because I found that I had struggled a lot with my diagnosis. HIV has been living with me for 16 years now. The first 10 years was really hard for me because I didn't have a positive support group or anyone to set realistic expectations on what I was going to experience. It was presented to me that after 10 years, my life was probably going to start going downhill. And receiving my diagnosis, I started the timer from the point that they told me. So getting closer to the 10-year mark, I started realizing that, hey, I'm still here, there's nothing wrong, I'm healthy, I'm loved, and I started to develop more hope. I moved from Michigan to Georgia in 2020, right before the pandemic jumped off, and having that time to kind of sit and reflect, being forced to stay home, working from home and everything, it made me kind of dig deeper and search for more understanding. I was able to join the first cohort of self-love at Darriyhan, and it kind of lifted me up so quickly and substantially that I was like, oh my God, what is this? It was so unfamiliar to me to be around people that shared similar experiences to me, shared different experiences that I wasn't even aware of, and it just gave me a whole new perspective. It encouraged me to want to be able to provide that same type of security to other people, which is why I agreed to be an ambassador for the second cohort. It was just overall such a fulfilling experience because, you know, in the beginning, you don't realize how much support you actually need, you know. So finally finding a place where I had people to embrace me and lift me up, it just, you know, it literally changed my life better. So thank you for your time.
So I'm clearly far from the shy type.
That's true.
Now, what we won't do. No, yeah. So I'm AJ Hester. My name is Ashton, but everybody calls me AJ. I've been working in this field and volunteering about almost 18 years now, and I'm 30, maybe 34. But anyway, I've been doing this for a good little minute. The reason why I didn't mind, I guess, coming back to the reason why I didn't mind, thank you, coming back to volunteer or to get back in. A long time ago, I used to go to a place called The Crib. It was a drop-in center under NASM, where you used to go hang out, you know, testing, you had gym, computer lab and all that. And it went downhill real fast on me. But that was my second home, literally. I literally left high school, would get out of school and go straight to the crib because that was my second family. I came from a background where I'm very religious, spiritual, or however you want to call it. I'm a PK child, so gay was not in our household. Baby, gay doesn't come to church. As you see now, baby, Christian and all, baby, I don't care. It is who it is now at this point. But Thrive has, so I didn't mind helping being the face of my generation for my peoples. And like they said, it's okay for Darriyhan to teach us the first cohort. So now I'm working myself on the third cohort, getting ready to go to the fourth cohort. And it's an accomplishment. I mean, listen. And so, like I said, we teach about self-love, 10 steps of love. So, look, and real quick, I'm jumping. The first one was identifying our whys. What's our whys in life? Most young people really don't know why they exist. What's their real purpose? You know, and I know coming from a background like that, we've been shot down so many times being in the LGBT community or being HIV positive community and all this other type of stuff. We get shot down fast. So we need our whys back, our real whys. Then we talk about commitment to yourself. To let go and forgive, which is my favorite. It's a deep one. Let go and forgive. And that's a hard thing for most people to do. Take accountability, embrace our flaws. Listen, love your mistakes and love who you are. Positive and all. Surround yourself with positivity, practice self-grace and compassion. Another of my favorite, take care of your needs. I tell people all the time, take care of yourself. Go treat yourself to something special once a month. Listen, I'm fat, black, and ugly. Listen, I love this big, fat, black, ugly bitch. However they want to call it. But listen, I take care of myself. Oh, I know, thank you, friend. Number 9 is setting healthy boundaries. Listen, it's okay to say no. Family, friendship, whatever the case may be, even in the workplace, it's okay to say no. No is a complete sentence, first of all. Let's be okay with that. And even to our people, it's okay to say no. And then lastly, daily affirmations. I can't encourage that enough to our young people or my generation. Listen, tell yourself, we have a thing where we do a reflection in the mirror. I'm beautiful, I'm black, I'm proud, I'm bold. Encourage yourself to listen. The streets don't give you all kind of other stuff. They're gonna give you every name but your name. So that's what we do, and that's what we are.
I just wanted to show, like, when you put community in positions that also encourage them to be able to lead and also facilitate, you get a different response. You know, first cohort was amazing, but the second and third cohort is even more amazing because the members see themselves being able to come back and lead and become ambassadors. So pretty much just other things that we offer, you know, we have positive action for peers program, which is like more one-on-one with the members. And my favorite thing part of the stuff is we always invite you to anything within our program. We sit down and we talk about support. Because we want to know what kind of support are you seeking, what support really looks like for you. Because if you're a person that requires one-on-one support, it would be waste my time to go back into a group where you may not feel like it's beneficial for you at that moment. You also may want to talk about HIV-specific conversations when and self-love, you really don't address it with the status with your environment.
Thank you for that. So the reason why we included this component in our presentation is because you have to look at what community looks like. If the silver lining group stood up and talked to you, you would see a group of men over 50 talking. But that's not who the community is. It's not one community in Atlanta. So you need to hopefully look at yourself and say, well, who else in the community can actually step up and talk on behalf of people? So you heard from two young people where they're now your advocate. So when you're talking about how you're going to create something, look around, because we're looking and we're creating something and we're inviting and we're including other people, not all of the same age. So one of the things we addressed, here we talk about, and we're going to shift here, where now we're talking about those who are older, but the concept still remains the same, as how do you address stigma in the community? Because stigma runs deep. Stigma is a very, how do I say it? It's a very deep conversation that takes place. And with our curriculum, we talk about the stigma. But if you want someone to advocate for your community, if you want someone to step up and talk to any legislator, if you want someone to talk to your community about what's going on, you need to allow them to address how they're being stigmatized. Because you don't want that stigmatic message to come across to someone who is talking. You want them to be an ally and change the mindset, and not turn around and now you've created another, not even a bridge, you've created a gap that's bigger than what is actually there. So part of one of the things we do is, in our program, we say, well, you have to address stigma. We address stigma by using photos. You feel, you can look at the photo, you can tell a story. We did this at one of our retreats, and we said, well, a group of us, a group of men said, we're going to take a picture with a kilt. And there's a hashtag at the bottom where it says, what you're not going to do is kill us with your stigma. So you got to send a message when you tell your story, when you present something, because you can't build bridges if you're trying to create gaps somewhere. So one of the components we do is we talk about advocacy. And some people think, well, to be an advocate, you need to write a letter, you need to sit down and talk to a congressman, you need to do all these other things. But how about being an advocate for yourself? How do you advocate on your behalf? How do you show up and you represent who you are? And like you had said, where you were in a space and someone came along and you had to move, or they made a comment because you're being your authentic self, and someone doesn't recognize that. So once again, we tell stories through images. We actually went to a play, and there's a group of Black men, but when we stood there, the image was, who are these people? So now they want to know who you are. So instead of running away from you, which is what you often see, because you see Black men, or you hear the media say there's a group of Black men, run away. We show up in spaces where it's a group of Black men. Now they want to come see what's going on. So here we talk about, we have a program, and we talk about, well, this program is great, and people know about the greatness of the program, but we start the question, because everything should be looked through a pair of lens to determine, well, how are you determining my greatness versus how I see my greatness being portrayed. So we put up a slide and talk about, make sure that your evaluation component is addressing your program from a perspective because you're a Black person. You don't want it to be written and be talked about from a perspective that someone who isn't melanated, because you want to make sure your authentic self is being portrayed for everyone. You want to make sure that your authentic self is evaluated, because you have needs that they may not understand. So it's very important that you have someone who understands your community. So our final image here, and this is intentional, where the silver lining is always going to photo shoot to address stigma. And the silver lining only ends with 50 and older. But if you're talking about bridging the gap, if you're trying to build bridges, if you're trying to collect or create this community of who, or create this group of who your community is, You gotta make sure your community is included. And so we heard from brothers like, we want to be a part of the photo shoot. We want to be a part of this. You have people who want to now be a part of your collective group. Now you need to include them. So if you can see on the image, hopefully you can, this is what we call the pearls of wisdom. So you see how we're wearing pearls here because we're signifying that men can wear pearls. Men can be beautiful individuals. We're not running around the streets. We're not shooting people. There's another version of how a Black man can be portrayed in America. We have a group of people here where they represent a huge spectrum of ages. The oldest is over 70. The youngest is a staff member's son. He's 5. Everyone here is wearing pearls. But when we're talking about creating community, everyone in this image is not living with. So when you're creating bridges, when you're building a community, make sure that you're reaching out to people who may not be living with the virus. They may help you more than you can help yourself. So once again, when you think about the exercise, whose lens are you looking through? Who are you looking at to support you? Are you just looking at one set because you're living with the virus? Or are you looking because a collective group? There could be someone who could be in your community whose family member transitioned from the virus. Are they now part of your group? Are they now part of your community? Just nuggets to drop down there. So, I'm going to turn this back over to the bishop.
So we didn't want this just to end here. We hope this presentation would be something that could be an example of what an intentional program that's designed to equip us to deal with racism looks like. But the question is, what will you do with the information that you've seen, ideas that present? What call to action exists for you? What aspect of your community might be neglected because you decided to focus on X population, but Y and Z's numbers are also representing highly impacted communities? So we kind of wanted to just leave you with a question, and we would love to receive feedback from you. If you have programs, and those of you, some of you in this room, have programs that have been designed in similar approaches, we'd love to hear about those programs so that the next time we do this presentation at USCHA in DC in a few months, we get to shout out that this is just one example in Georgia, but we know about 50 other programs because of the work that we've discovered in collaboration. What we really want to do is move out of the space where we're competing with each other. And instead, we're collaborating with each other. It's too late for us to be, I mean, I'm not, it's a soapbox. I see it. I'm not going to get on this. I think I said it on it. What we would love to do is maybe get feedback, and we're about to share contact information so that can come back to us. Here are email addresses that we can be reached at. If you'd like to take a picture, please let us know that you were in the room. Feedback on this presentation. We would love to hear what you thought about it, things that really resonated with you, things that didn't land with you. We'd love to stay in community with you. I'm of the opinion that this week is not an end of itself. It's about what we do after we leave. Tomorrow, we're all going to be at the airport. I was about to say various airports, but we came through that little thing. We all going to be this close at different gates at the airport. We're going to be looking at each other at different gates like this, right? So, do you have any questions as we wrap up? Are there any legal questions that you? And if you don't want to ask some questions in the room, you can ask questions on email. But before we go, is there any burning questions that you have? One share.
You did.
Thanks so much.
I have a question, and I always want to ask this question. I've been observing you all for a long time, and the work you do. I would like to know what made you all come together to address all of these areas and as a group of Black men.
What was the question?
What made
He asked what made us come together as a group of Black men to address this work. So part of that, and I grabbed the mic because part of it needs to be answered from Malcolm, because he's the co-founder. And so I'm just getting that over to you.
So yeah, so as I mentioned before, working for AT&T for 20 years, as a man living with HIV, knowing that I was living with HIV, I lived a blessed life. I say that because I had great insurance. I went to the doctor prescribed my pills. I never had any problem getting my medication, none of that. But then I started talking to friends of mine who told me about ADAP and all this other stuff. And they told me about the recertification, and I think some of you heard me say in a speech before, I was like, wait a minute, you got to recertify if you got HIV, there ain't no damn cure. Why you got to do that, right? But the other part of that was that, so that drove me into advocacy, right? That drove me into looking into finding ways to get involved in the community. And when I went to look to find ways to get involved in the community, I didn't see anything for guys my age. Well, I did see one thing. There was a program called Sage, and many of y'all know Sage and different things. But when I went to Sage, I saw nothing look like that. White people, right? And so I was like, okay, this is not it. And a friend of ours, may he rest in power and in presence, Jerome Hughes, told me about this organization. And so came to the organization and I started talking, and one of the things that impressed me was I told Barry Walker at the time, I told him that I didn't see anything for me, and he said, create it. And I was like, I don't know nothing about this. But I have always said, and the Reverend will scare me out, when you have something on your heart that is good and is pure, that the universe will send you who you need. Right? And Claude Bowen and Nathan and Daniel Griffin called me up and said one day, hey, we got a grant for the program. And I was like, okay. So we got together and we wrote the Silver Skills program. We wrote Oldest Mountain, we wrote all of that. Because we knew, for me, it was about knowing that I came from blessing. Me and my husband been together for 25 years. I'm not lonely when I go home, but I know that there are guys my age that are lonely. And loneliness and isolation will kill you faster than HIV will. And so we wanted to create something so that guys could come together and share and talk and everything else. And all of this happened. So
thank you for sharing that.
We actually started meeting before Darryl, men of color.
Right, yeah. Men of, what was it? What would it say? Mature men of color. It was mature men of color.
And there was, Brian got done a photo shoot. There were only 2 men over 50 represented. I was like, oh no, man. So I got on the chat, asked the guys, come on, let's take a picture together. Just to show. And from that, we take a picture every year, and our pictures became campaigns. So, I swallow. When I say I swallow, people go, oh, I'm talking about I swallow my meds. So it makes people think, I swallow was powerful. We were sitting around swallowing liquor. And it came up.
We were literally sitting around drinking, and you made a joke. I thrive because I swallow. And we said, oh shit, that's a good slogan. And next thing you know, there were t-shirts and postcards.
So what we try to do is not only support, but encourage. So we have our stories just like they have their stories. And we want to make sure everyone is heard and taken care of.
I have a question. And have you all thought about moving? Have you all thought about moving it in other states?
When you want us to come and see.
Well, first of all, just get in. So Thrive SS has opened chapters in Louisiana, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans, in Baltimore, in Birmingham. And we had a chapter in DC that was, so we're reviving that one as well. So all those programs, as I said earlier in another meeting, are coming to the theater near you.
Oh, I was gonna say, is there anything else?
No.
So where would you like, no, so the questions I'm gonna pose to you is, why, now that you have some information, the challenge and the call to you is to build it, and because you know your community. We don't know your community. You know your community.
Exactly.
No, that's the idea, and we're supposed to encourage people. So, well, then you need to go build with him, because the idea is you can't build it by yourself. You get your community together and build it. And then when you have your opening, you invite us. Look,
If I see, when I say that, when I'm talking about that, I know every community is different, but when I think of this, I think the basics and the training and everything should remain the same everywhere. That's what I'm talking about. You know, a pack.
So, yeah, you said the key word, it's about support. So you can't put the orange in the apple. So you know your community. So you build it for support. You know, that's, you know, we're gonna challenge you. And now that I've heard you ask this 3 times, the next time I see you, I expect to see a plan of action. How about this? Okay?
Can you assist us to make a chapter in Indiana for Black Indiana?
Of course.
Say it one more time.
Of course.
Yes. Say it one more time.
I know me and Mark, we're from Indiana. So Mark, I'm his mentee. He brought me into the work. So the questions he asking is, I'm getting the gems from him, just like you did with Darriyhan. He's the product of y'all, I'm the product of him. So my question is, because he did this on purpose. That's why
It's a setup.
it's a setup.
Be clear.
My question is, he gave me the tools to start Thrive SS in Indiana, so we can have a support group for us in Indiana.
So, yes. So
You heard it. You heard yes.
we started and I'm gonna get this wrong, and Larry Walker's gonna kill me. We started a program called 3PA. I don't ask you what the 3 Ps are, but we didn't like the word technical assistance. So we created a program that is managed by a gentleman that you saw, one of the gentlemen you saw in the picture, Kenny Okafor. And what Kenny is doing is going through all of our programs, and we are creating technical assistance for other organizations to replicate those programs. So you can reach out to me for that. Or you can reach out to Larry Hester. It's LarryH@ThriveSS.org. And you can go through that.
So,
and I gotta run, guys. Talk to you all later.
When I see you and I see the 2 of you, I'm expect to hear, ooh, not we're starting, the word to be started.
Oh, I have.
Okay. You have a question here.
I just had this kind of,
Before the question, I just wanted to thank you all for sharing this programs that you all have. I've talked with Chauncey, but I have an organization called Evolve Center Faith. It's very much like similar to what you all do. And I've been thinking of how to bridge the gap between the multi-generations, right? To bring that support between those gentlemen. I pretty much serve Black and gender recommend. But I've been doing it all by myself since 2015. So just to kind of have that blueprint, I'm grateful that you all have that to where we can have that technical assistance. Because I definitely want to build it out so we can have a second or another part of the program.
And you're in Tampa?
We need to talk. Yes.
I know that.
And we also have a sister group, notice, for the ladies. Just so you know.
Oh, I'm in those.
Okay. I said, we ain't forgot about you.
Are there any other questions? We want to thank you for attending our presentation, and we don't take it lightly because you could have attended any other presentation that was given between 4:30 and 6. So we want to thank you for attending ours. Next year, I don't want to attend on lip service. All right. You went to Indiana. Wait, I think I talked about this in,